Imagine a place so cold, so isolated, and so unforgiving that even the worst criminals in Russia fear being sent there. A prison where the walls aren't just made of concrete and steel, but of ice, silence, and psychological decay. Deep in the frozen tundra of northern Siberia lies one of the world's most brutal high-security prisons. It's not just a place to incarcerate, it's where the Russian government sends its monsters to disappear. Welcome to the Polar Owl Colony, the coldest high-security prison on Earth. Here, winter never ends, mercy never arrives. And the sentence isn't just life in prison, it's life in the ice.
То, что мы видим, факты, которые там всплывают, это абсолютно недопустимо. Там нужно совершенствовать эту систему.
Russia has never been soft on crime. But in the far reaches of the Yamalo-Nenets region, they took things to a different level. Officially named IK-18, but known across the criminal underworld as Polar Owl, this prison is home to the worst of the worst. Serial killers, cannibals, rapists, terrorists. This is where they end up.
The main crime committed by the convicts here is murder. But we also have maniacs, pedophiles, and terrorists.
And once inside, they vanish, not just from society, but from time itself. Temperatures routinely drop to minus 50 degrees. Snow blankets the facility year-round. The nearest town is hours away by helicopter. And within the prison, every step is watched. Every word recorded. Every privilege earned. This isn't about rehabilitation. It's about containment. And when you're sentenced to Polar Owl, you don't serve your time. Time serves you. The location that froze humanity. Built in the remote Karp settlement above the Arctic Circle, Polar Owl is surrounded by dense taiga forests, frozen rivers, and endless snowfields. The prison is more than 1,000 miles from Moscow, and there are no roads in or out. Getting there is a journey of its own. Most prisoners are flown in on military helicopters. For others, it's a train ride in shackles across thousands of miles of Siberian wilderness. By the time they arrive, they already know escape is not an option. The isolation isn't just physical, it's psychological. Even the guards rotate shifts to avoid mental burnout from the desolation. But for the inmates, there's no rotation, just the slow decay of the mind as weeks blur into years and years into nothingness. Polar Owl was intentionally built in a location where nature itself acts as a prison wall. It's not just the fences or the guards that keep people in, it's the sheer inhospitable vastness that surrounds them. If you escaped, where would you go? There's nothing but frozen wilderness for hundreds of miles. That's part of what makes this place so terrifying. Even freedom would be a death sentence. Who ends up in Polar Owl? This is Russia's final stop. Polar Owl is reserved for those serving multiple life sentences, men whose crimes are so heinous they can never be allowed back into society. Some are mass murderers, others are serial rapists. A few are political prisoners or terrorists. All of them share one thing in common. The state believes their existence is a threat. There are no light sentences here, no parole hearings. The average inmate has killed at least 2 people. Many have killed far more. Inside Polar Owl, you're either a predator who got caught or prey. One infamous inmate is Alexander Pichushkin, the chessboard killer, convicted of murdering 49 people, though he claims to have killed 60.
Today, we're going to be deep diving into the case of Alexander Pichushkin, a Russian-born serial killer who claimed the lives of up to 60 people between 1992 and 2006.
Another is Mikhail Popkov, a former police officer turned serial killer who murdered at least 78 women. Both now serve their sentences in this frozen tomb. And they're not alone.
Какая у вас мечта?
В армию попасть. Ну, я вот если я скажу просто, у меня есть так желание, это не совсем искренне будет, потому что все-таки это не компьютерная игрушка, и это не книжка художественная, а каких-то там супер.
Sergei Ryakhovsky, known as the Balashika Ripper, was transferred here after being convicted of 19 murders, including children. Then there's Anatoly Onoprienko, the beast of Ukraine, who left a trail of over 50 corpses behind him. These are not ordinary inmates, they're legends of brutality. In another time, their stories might have been told in folklore. But at Polar Owl, they're just ghosts with names. Some of them have spoken, briefly. In interviews conducted years ago under strict supervision, Pichushkin chillingly remarked, "Life has no meaning without murder." Popkov once stated that he was cleansing society. There is no rehabilitation here, only containment of the mind so fractured, so lethal, that the only way to manage them is to lock them inside an ice-covered tomb and throw away the key. The prison structure, built to crush the soul. Polar Owl doesn't look like a modern prison. It looks like a military outpost buried in snow. Guard towers loom over electrified fences. Thick steel doors block every corridor. Surveillance cameras cover every inch of the interior. Inside, inmates are kept in tiny cells, barely 2 by 3 meters. The walls are gray. The lights stay on. The windows are narrow slits covered in frost. Heating exists, but only just. Many prisoners wear padded jackets year-round, even indoors. Meals are cold. Water is rationed. Showers, once a week under supervision. Everything, from movement to speech, is controlled. There's no television, no radio, no internet. Books are censored. Mail is monitored. Visits are rare. It's not punishment, it's erasure. Every door is built to resist riots. Every hallway is reinforced to prevent escape. There are multiple checkpoints just to get to a single wing. And even then, each step deeper into the prison feels like a step into another realm, a world where time and warmth do not exist. Cells aren't equipped with standard bunks. Inmates sleep on cold metal slabs with thin blankets. Everything is calculated to reduce comfort, to reinforce that this is a place not meant for life, but for silence. Daily life in HELLFROST. Each day at Polar Owl begins the same. Prisoners are woken at 6 a.m., counted, and ordered to clean their cells. Silence is enforced. Any speaking out of turn is met with isolation. Inmates are allowed a 90-minute walk in a cage-like yard once per day. It's the only time they see the sky, a sky often gray, heavy with snow, and void of color. Most inmates choose not to speak. Not because they're forbidden, but because there's nothing left to say. In a place like this, even conversation becomes a luxury. There are no group activities, no religious services, no therapy. Mental health care is minimal. Depression is common. Suicides are not rare. One inmate reportedly said, "It's not the cold that kills you here, it's the silence." Prisoners mark time by meal times and head counts. Day after day, week after week, holidays mean nothing. Seasons are irrelevant. The passing of time feels like a hallucination. And yet, within this frozen stasis, routines are enforced with militant precision. Every item is accounted for, every step monitored. You're not just locked in a cage, you are the cage. The guards, men who stare at monsters. At Polar Owl, even the guards are hardened by the cold. Each officer is hand-selected, trained not just in security but in psychological endurance. These men walk among monsters, murderers with nothing left to lose. They don't just enforce the rules, they are the rules.
Come out now. Any prohibited items on you?
No.
Guards must undergo routine psychological evaluations. The environment is so mentally taxing that even officers are rotated out every few months. Some have spoken off the record about the emotional toll, about waking up in sweats, hearing phantom screams, or staring into the eyes of inmates so devoid of humanity it's like looking into a mirror that doesn't reflect back. Unlike most prisons, where corruption or bribery can erode order, Polar Owl operates under pure discipline. Guards carry batons and wear insulated armor. They use military-style patrol formations, and their word is final. But even they aren't immune to fear. An incident in 2017 involved a guard who refused to complete his rotation after a chilling encounter with an inmate who hadn't spoken in years, but who smiled and whispered his name from across the corridor. At Polar Owl, it's not just the inmates who are changed. The staff, too, leave different than they arrived, colder, quieter, less human. Isolation cells, where the mind collapses. For those who break the rules inside Polar Owl, there's a place even darker than the general population cells, the isolation block. These are the tombs within the tomb, small windowless boxes where light barely reaches and sound is a distant echo. Prisoners sent here spend 23 hours a day in complete solitude. No books, no contact, just their thoughts and the hum of fluorescent lights. The temperature inside is slightly warmer than outside, but still freezing by normal standards. Meals are slid through a slot in the door. Communication with guards is minimal, often reduced to a nod or a gesture. Some inmates beg to be returned to general population after only a few days. Others never speak again. The isolation cells are lined with reinforced concrete. They're designed to prevent suicide, but not suffering. The bed is a slab, the toilet a hole. Surveillance never stops. In one documented case, an inmate spent 45 days in isolation after striking a guard. When he returned to general population, he refused to speak, eat, or even sleep normally. He'd been reduced to a shadow, his mind fractured from the silence. Escape is a myth, and everyone knows it. Escape from Polar Owl is not just improbable, it's impossible. The prison is built in layers, like a fortress. There are 3 levels of security fencing, each rigged with sensors and electrified wire. Guard towers have thermal imaging scopes. Drones fly overhead. Dogs trained for Arctic conditions patrol constantly. And then, there's nature. Outside the walls is nothing but frozen death. No shelter, no food, no direction. A man could walk for days and still not reach civilization, assuming he doesn't freeze to death first. There has never been a successful escape from Polar Owl. Not even an attempt worth noting. The inmates know the futility. Even if they breach the walls, their reward would be death by exposure. One inmate was once caught making a crude map of the prison. When interrogated, he reportedly said, "I wasn't planning to escape. I just wanted to remember something bigger than my cell." Because at Polar Owl, the idea of escape isn't a plan. It's a fantasy that slowly dies in the cold, when life means never leaving. In most prisons, a life sentence offers a glimmer of hope. Appeals, parole, a chance at redemption. At Polar Owl, life means exactly that. Until death. Inmates grow old here. They die here.
Меня зовут Андрей, фамилия моя Лебедев. Я здесь нахожусь в этой колонии уже 16 лет. Я считаю, это заслуженно. Это уже 94 год, ни зарплаты, ничего нету, то есть, жить-то как-то надо. И втянулся в банду. Изнасиловал я девушку, впоследствии потом еще убил ее.
Their bodies are buried in unmarked graves nearby, or returned to families who may no longer claim them. Funerals are not held. Death is noted in a ledger, and the cell is reassigned. No rehabilitation programs, no exit strategies. Polar Owl is not designed to reform. It's designed to forget. A former warden once remarked, "We don't run a prison, we run a freezer." And that's the truth. The men locked inside this Arctic fortress are not meant to return to the world. They are entombed in routine, in isolation, in silence, until their minds erode and their hearts stop. Because here, at the end of the world, mercy is as rare as warmth. And justice? It comes in the form of snow, steel, and silence. Human rights in the deep freeze. In a world increasingly driven by calls for prison reform and human dignity, Polar Owl stands as a chilling outlier, a facility where even the idea of human rights seems to freeze in place. International human rights groups have raised concerns, but Russia has remained largely silent. Reports of psychological decay, prolonged isolation, and harsh climatic exposure have prompted some to call the prison a slow-motion execution. Yet there's no official transparency, no press tours, no external audits, no third-party inspections. And for many in Russia, that silence is not only accepted, it's applauded. In a country hardened by history, public opinion often skews toward retribution over rehabilitation. A 2019 survey found that a majority of Russians favored the return of the death penalty. Against that backdrop, few tears are shed for the men buried alive in Polar Owl's frozen tomb. Government officials have defended the prison's conditions as appropriate for the crimes committed. State media rarely mentions the facility by name. When they do, it's with cold finality, presenting it as a necessary evil in the fight against monsters. But critics say even monsters are still men, that keeping human beings locked in ice, silence, and solitude for decades may say more about the state than the prisoner.
Все это вместе доказывает, что действовал действительно пыточный конвейер, который тщательным образом скрывался администрацией.
The real question isn't whether these men deserve this, one human rights advocate said. It's what it does to us as a society when we build places like this. Inside Polar Owl, there is no rehabilitation, no second chances, just punishment sculpted from permafrost. And outside, a world that chooses to look away. Because out of sight is easier than confronting what it truly means to be human. As the world watches from afar, places like Polar Owl remind us of what true incarceration looks like when mercy is removed from the equation, when punishment isn't just a sentence, but an environment designed to crush the soul. So the next time you hear about a high-security prison, remember this. Some are meant to hold people. Others are meant to bury them. If you found this story chilling, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more untold stories and drop a comment below. Could you survive a single week in Polar Owl? Because for those inside, 1 week is just the beginning.